sure enough, there we are. All right. So, well, thanks everybody for crowd noise. This is great. So this is the WooCommerce WordPress meetup. So hopefully you're all in the right place. What I wanted to do, start out very quickly here, is introduce and give thanks to Liquid Web, the purchaser of our pizza from Austin Pizza, which we're all enjoying. And Liquid Web is offering a special this month. The best coupon available is what they say, and I don't know exactly what they're offering with their best coupon ever.
Actually, it's a yellow line on the top of the.
In the yellow line at the top of the.
And it's 25% off.
25% off. There you go.
Okay.
So it's and they will move your site for free if you're located somewhere else. So they are specializing in WooCommerce and now WooCommerce startups. So if you are in the market for a website, please give Liquid Web a look-see.
And for beginners, they're offering a 1 month free, and they will move you for free.
So full hosting and DIY. So. And with that, I'll just quickly mention that we do have about 4 meetups a month. So we have our beginners meetup at the Austin Baptist Church at 2222 and 620, and that is on the 3rd Monday of every month. This is our WooCommerce meetup, same time every month. We have our developers meetup, which is the first Tuesday of every month at WP Engine, and we have on the second Thursday of every month is right downstairs on the first floor, our intermediate. So we may not be the world's largest. I think I have now slipped to 10th place in the WordPress meetups of the world, but we are, as far as I can tell, still the most active. Anyway, that having been said, now from here we're going to be moving on for our topic for the day, getting ready for Black Friday. And as Toyin had pointed out, we normally have this about a month later, but usually that doesn't provide people enough time to jump on all the changes they need to make to get ready for Black Friday. So, having decided to run it a month earlier this time, to move things, give you the time to do things. So let me turn the podium over to our honored speaker for the night.
All right, let me take over. All right, you guys can see my screen okay? Good. All right, cool. All right, I guess I should start off with, my name is Toyin. I'm a WordPress developer, primarily WooCommerce. Done a lot of e-com around most of the popular PHP shopping cart systems out right now. So that's me, with a little less gray. So if it's a sort of open source e-com system, I've probably worked on it. So that sort of informs how I use WooCommerce and other systems, and that hopefully will give a little background towards the presentation today. So this is not just stuff for WooCommerce. This would apply if you're using Shopify, Miva Merchant, Yahoo Carts, or Yahoo Stores, etc., etc. All right, so let's get started talking about Black Friday. So this year, Black Friday is, every year, Black Friday is the Friday after Thanksgiving. This year is the 23rd, so it's about just under 2 months away. So Black Friday as a concept has been around since the 50s, and companies like Sears, Montgomery Ward, if you guys remember those guys, really sort of pioneered the idea. This is the time of year where stores were fairly certain to be firmly in the black, which is where the name comes from, or at least that's as legend says. It is the busiest physical shopping day of the year. So people going into stores, and obviously the night before Black Friday, or early mornings of Black Friday, or where you see those clips on the news of people being crazy.
Specials.
Right, doorbuster specials, people getting trampled on, etc. In the physical space, this is ruled by Walmart because they have biggest logistics engine outside of, I think, the military, the U.S. military, and they have a lot of stores, so they can command good prices, and they have a very good sort of operations machine. So Black Friday has been around for a long time, and it's sort of grown in popularity. It got bigger when people started going online and being promoted heavily online. You've always had stuff like people would go into Best Buy, go into Home Depot to get that special drill or whatever else. But as more business moves online, you're starting to get some of these same kind of deals as you would in real space, in virtual space. And it's a lot easier to stay up late or check first thing in the morning than having to wait 4 hours, 5 hours before the store opens. So the concept of Cyber Monday is obviously the Monday after Thanksgiving. Yes?
Do we have comparative sales volumes between Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
I don't have any official comparative sales volume. I can tell you anecdotally from projects I've worked on. So the stuff I work on, Cyber Monday is maybe a fifth, if that,
Okay.
of Black Friday volume. Of course, it depends on your physical presence, right? So I've worked with stores that have had north of 50, 60 locations, and so that kind of volume for Black Friday generally will beat a regular store, right? In my case, talked about before, I worked at a company called Kendra Scott. We would do more business on Cyber Monday than we did physically in the stores. But that's a aberrant situation. For a normal store, if you're thinking of someone like Walmart or Home Depot or Best Buy or something, they do significantly more volume in stores, in physical stores, than they do online. And online sales in total are still less than, I think, 6%, for sure less than 10% of all sales in the US. The percentage is higher during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but it is, it's barely registering still for total revenue, total products moved in the US. Now, of course, we're counting all kinds of things towards that, but as a general rule, there are lots of kinds of stores that don't exist online. If you think of, dollar stores, if you think of car parts stores, they do exist, I should say, online, but nobody actually goes to them to go buy or to buy any kind of significant quantity. All right, so Black Friday, the concept, just like other holidays we have sort of spread outside the U.S. So There's Black Friday in Australia, Black Friday in Canada, not Black Friday. Black Friday has been around for a while. Cyber Monday now exists in Australia, it exists in Canada, it exists in Mexico, exists in, almost all the Anglophone countries and some other countries, Francophone countries as well.
Anywhere Amazon is?
I'm sorry?
Anywhere Amazon is?
Anywhere Amazon has a significant basis. So it might not be a big thing in China yet. I don't know enough about that market. But yes, wherever Amazon lands, there's a space for it. And I mean, it's not just Amazon. Other countries have their own players. In South America, you have Mercado Pago, which is a fairly decent operator for online commerce. They also have the concept of Black Friday, right? Or Cyber Monday. It's not necessarily always the day after Thanksgiving, but since US-based companies are stationing it that way, it's a good time for everybody else to sort of jump on board, right? The other instance of this that's coming, and maybe 6 months from now I'll be talking about this as well, is Prime Day. Prime Day is my new favorite holiday because Amazon picked a day, decided they were going to make it their day, and Amazon sells more stuff on their day now than I believe every other day except for Cyber Monday, right? And Amazon sells more of their own stuff on Prime Day. But the interesting thing is because of Prime Day from Amazon, you now see sales from Best Buy, Home Depot, beauty stores, all kinds of companies now starting to do sales as well on Prime Day. So it's no longer Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and things like that are national. Yes, they're manufactured, but they're still sort of national holidays that became commercialized. This is 100% commercial holiday, if you will, that has now spread because of the power or size of Amazon, right? So that'll be something we might talk about in the future. More and more online retailers will be getting into it. But the idea of Prime Day is something that Amazon really brought forth, and everybody else has agreed and joined on in it. All right, so let's do one more definition for today. Green Monday. So Green Monday is pretty much the last shot you have of making money before the end of the holiday season. The designation is made usually about 10 days, 12 days before Christmas, because that's the last you can absolutely positively, hopefully, get product to people when they buy online. So Green Monday used to be end of November, but as UPS, FedEx, and the post office have gotten better, that time has shrunken, right? Now, so here's the reason why this math is important, and it depends on the company you're at, right? So not talking online commerce right now, just commerce in general. Most stores do half of their business between the beginning of the year and sometime in September. They do the next half of the business between that time in September and the end of the year. They do half of that business, so maybe a quarter overall, in this week. So when you're talking the day or two before Thanksgiving, for about a week later, that is the bulk. That's 20-25% for a lot of companies of their total revenue, or at least profit, during the year, right? So most of the year, if you can imagine, most of the year is to get ready for this, what is now a scale event. Okay? So Green Monday is the last possible time at your company, and Green Monday is sort of an industry standard, but on a shop-by-shop basis. If you're making something bespoke in your store, and it's going to take you 2 months to manufacture it, maybe it's too late to sell something once it hits November, right? Maybe what you're selling then is not the product, but is the contract for the item to be made, right? If you're selling something physical, the lighter it is, the smaller it is, the easier it is that UPS or whoever else can deliver it, the closer you can get to Christmas. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there was a big storm and it delayed a lot of shipments, and UPS and FedEx failed to deliver packages on Christmas. They delivered packages the day after. They justifiably had a giant snowstorm, but so many people were angry that Christmas was ruined. This is one of the reasons Amazon has now gone so far as, they're building out their own infrastructure for their own shipments, right? So they're still paying UPS, FedEx, Post Office, and the like, but if you order from Amazon Prime, you'll see more and more that your products are now being delivered by Amazon itself, right? It will be interesting within, my guess is 3 years. Amazon will probably be selling that also as a service, so your options for delivery would not just be UPS, FedEx, DHL, Post Office. Amazon Logistics might also be one of the options.
Is that strictly US so far, or are they?
Yes. I know that there are talks of doing stuff in Canada, and there are pilots for drone deliveries in Australia, but Australia is a weird place. They do all kinds of pilots over there, so it might lead to nothing. But for sure, Amazon is committed for it here in the States. They have a fleet of planes in, I want to say, Nashville or something. And anybody that's used Prime Now or is using the delivery service for Whole Foods, that is Amazon's logistics system. So Amazon actually has, I think, 3 different logistics systems. There's the one that's the straight up replacement for UPS. There's another one, I think it's called Amazon Drive. It's sort of like Uber meets package delivery. And then they have a new one, which is a little in between, where you do package delivery primarily for Amazon, but they will come out with some data layer on top like Uber to let other retailers also sell travel on your bus or your van or whatever. That's still 2 or 3 years out. But so those are 3 different systems that Amazon's working on that, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we will all be taking for granted. Right? Now, of course, this technology is not the same all over the country. Austin, we happen to be a little bit more special, so we get a little bit more access to this stuff than if you were in Cheyenne, Wyoming, or something. But I foresee that at least for all big cities, top 100, top 200 cities, Amazon will roll out all of these kind of technologies in the future. And so this will be, again, in the world of e-com, we're chasing Amazon. And so with Amazon moving to this kind of behavior in the future, you don't need to worry about it now, but it will likely affect the default expectation of what an e-com store should behave like. If that makes sense. Any questions right now? All right. So here's a number. I don't have it in the slide, but there are more than half of the U.S. households has Amazon Prime. For context, that is more people than go to church on a regular basis. That shows you that the only other place that people visit more than Amazon is Walmart, right? And maybe the IRS website.
But that's only the amount of people that have the internet. So
Right.
all the other
people, right.
they're out of luck.
Right.
Okay.
So, and of course that's in the U.S., right? But the U.S. is is the richest market. And so as Amazon spreads other countries, the percentage of profit they'll make will be lower. However, if Amazon is already sitting on half of all households here, as that grows, of course, it'll be growing slower and slower. By virtue of their scale, they will keep being able to take advantage of things, right? I know I'm harping a lot on Amazon, but if you've ever heard me talk, here are the rules I believe in. 1, Amazon teaches us what e-com is, or teaches regular people what e-com is. 2, Facebook teaches regular people what social networking is. And 3, Google teaches us what search is for everybody. Our relationship with search, our relationship with email, our relationship with cloud data comes from one or all of those 3 companies. So the way they go is how, you might not agree with it, but you'll be doing it a year from now. All right, so why bother even trying to prep for Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Because these behemoths we're talking about, and I'm just talking about Amazon, we haven't gotten to Best Buy, Walmart, Home Depot, these giant companies that do huge sales for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. How are you gonna avoid getting lost in that crush? Right. So, I don't know if any of you guys have kids, but I have a kid and she is not stupid. So the time she asks me to buy something is when my wallet is already out of my back pocket. If I'm driving, we're taking a walk, she's not asking me for stuff. It's when I'm in the grocery store or I'm buying a drink or something and she sees me do this. Once it's untucked and I'm gonna open it anyway. If you're gonna spend $10, why not $5 more, Daddy, so I can get some candy, right? So, so all of us, 50% of us in the US are spending money most likely on Amazon that day, right? So Black Friday or Cyber Monday, we're already online making purchases. If people are already online with their hands or with their wallets out, with their credit cards out, it's a good time to convince them to also come shopping with you. So a lot of people, when they're buying Christmas presents, aren't hitting, okay, I'm an exception. I will go to Amazon and I will buy everything in a 20-minute surgical strike if I can swing it. But a lot of people go through many different sites to sort of get the products that they want. Why not add your site to one of those products? Right? And so that's why it's a good time to think about this, about selling to people. Another reason is that when you're thinking about Amazon or Walmart or these players selling, they're not selling specialty items. They are selling extremely commoditized items on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, right? 2 or 3 years ago, it went from a 30-inch, 32-inch TV being a reasonable size to a 55-inch TV is sort of like a reasonable size now you can get it in the store. You know, I helped a friend of mine move a 65-inch TV into his house a couple years ago. I can't go to his house anymore because this TV is too freaking big, right? I go back home and I feel inadequate with my, with my small TV, right? But that's because that year, you know, sort of some of the Chinese manufacturers decided to bet big on television, right? And so these things happen on a year-by-year basis. It doesn't make sense for us to go, for me as a random company, necessarily to go try and compete on televisions head-to-head with these guys that are turning it out at scale. But maybe if there's something special about my television, it might make sense to still sell against those that kind of competition, right? So what happens is, based on market forces, based on incentives in different countries, you end up having some classes of products being available, commoditized at grand scale. Either somebody invented better technology, some part is cheaper, there's a glut on some product, and now you can find, what are those, the little hoverboards that aren't really hoverboards, you know, the 2-wheel board scooter things. One year that was a very popular item as well, right? And so those are the kind of things that even if you weren't planning on buying, you'd be like, oh yeah, my son wanted this or my cousin wanted that. You're gonna pull your wallet out to buy it at a ridiculous price. While it's out, hey, us over here want to sell you something too. Maybe you're interested, right? So that's why it matters for you to think about it when people are buying. Okay, so Black Friday is the biggest shopping day in physical space. Cyber Monday is the biggest shopping day online in the US, right? And I'm not sure if it is worldwide. I'm pretty sure it is. I just don't have hard numbers. And at some point soon, I'm sure Prime Day will also follow suit as another very large shopping day for the market in general. But until that time, I can't give you great advice on how to navigate Amazon. All right, so let's get into specifics. All this time I've been talking pretty much about market forces and giant players. How does it actually affect you? What can you do that makes you special or different than Walmart? Okay. So the number one thing is uniqueness, right? Or novelty. Who cares about the second man on the moon? I mean, I care about the second man on the moon. The second man on the moon cares. Does anybody else care about the second man on the moon? No. The first man on the moon. Because it's about novelty. And so, if this is the year, if last year was the year for hoverboards, let's say, and you get somebody a hoverboard this year, it's no longer that interesting or unique, right? It's a gift that anybody else can have at this point. But if you get them, I don't know, a unicorn hat, I don't know if such a thing exists, but I know if it did, my daughter would love it, right? If you got somebody a unicorn hat this year, that's the new hotness, and you've now made a statement as a gift giver. If next year there are millions of unicorn hats available, it doesn't have the same cachet as it would have this year. Right? The advantage that smaller operators have over these giant stores is you don't have to spend months scaling up to that kind of event necessarily, right? So if you imagine, let's just imagine there's going to be 1 million unicorn hats available end of November. That has been worked on for the last 6 months, maybe the last 9 months, to prepare the materials, the designs, et cetera, to get it all ready. You can decide tomorrow that you like a basketball team, or you like a basketball player, or a soccer team, and you can have, I don't know. I know Manu Ginobili doesn't play anymore, but it'd be like, Manu sucks as a shirt, let's say. You can design it and sell it tomorrow, right? You don't have the monetary scale. However, what you make up, or what you don't have monetary scale, you make up for flexibility and ability to customize. And so, I could buy a hoverboard, or I could buy the special Marty McFly hoverboard, right? That's custom designed, custom painted, or whatever. That's something that's now a differentiator that some people would want and pay extra for versus a normal hoverboard. Does that make sense? All right. So, selling on Black Friday to differentiate yourself starts to sound a lot more, for good reason, like selling baseball cards or collector cards, right? Anybody can get the product wherever they want, or any product wherever they want. The idea is to give somebody something a little bit special, something a little bit different. It is not necessarily that the product is different. It might be that the experience is different. Right? I don't know if you guys, at least the men in here, have gone to any of those fancy salons for men. And women's salons in general are already this. But now I've been to places in Vegas where you'll go in, you sit down, you want to get a haircut, you get a glass of bourbon, you get a cigar, you get a warm towel for your face, you get some nice jazz music in the background, it's low light, it's sort of like a man cave, right? And it's just a haircut, right? But I'm paying 4 times more for that haircut in this fancy space than if I went to Bo Rick's, right? It is the same hair. It might actually be a worse haircut, but it's worth it to me because there's something unique about that. Right? So I can get a random normal hoverboard, or I can get the Marty McFlys. I'm starting to really like this idea, so maybe I'll do it. But again, because there's something that's unique there, there's something that you can't get anywhere else, or at least not very many places. It has added cachet, it has added intimacy, and especially if you're buying it as a gift for somebody else, is the kind of thing that now makes it much more interesting for me to buy for my friend, or my daughter, or my sister, or whatever, than essentially the same thing that comes only in blue, black, and yellow, right? So, the place you can't compete, you can't beat them, is on price. So don't try to. A lot of times it's actually better to be significantly higher, right? I have a shortcut I do, because I found myself, ever been to the grocery store and you're looking at two toasters, one looks like a knockoff of the other one, or it's the same company. It's like, how's it this toaster's $12 and this toaster's $74? They look the same, they weigh about the same. There's one extra feature on this thing and I don't know what it is, but it's apparently $50, $60 plus worth more. I don't understand, right? My default now, because I'm stupid, is I just buy the more expensive one if I'm not sure. Most people will sort of just, sit there. And the reason I do that now is because I would sit somewhere for an hour and I'd look at it and I'd walk away, do the rest of my shopping, come back and weigh these two toasters. And I'm not kidding, I literally did do this for toasters, right? Because there's only a slight differentiation. I couldn't see the value. But when you can't see the value, and especially if the money doesn't matter to you that much, people will buy that thing. And sometimes the value is just, it's different, right? If toaster 1 only comes in black, toaster 2 comes in black and red, oh, well, the fact that it's red might, even though it's as simple as that color, might be the thing that makes a difference. A special edition, I don't know, bullfighting toaster, right? But again, what I'm hoping to hone in on here is that there needs to be something a little bit different than what you can buy at any other online store, especially the big player online stores. Now it's different if you're fighting with other people in your same space, in your same weight class. It's not worth it trying to take on Amazon or take on Walmart for something that they do well, right? So find the gaps. And it's like being ants next to giants. There's a lot of land they don't step on. So find one of those places and set up your spot. All right. So now let's talk about some of the actual logistics. So a lot of people don't sell physical goods, and for that, most of this won't matter to you. But if you do sell physical goods, you need to worry about staging it. How quickly from your warehouse can you get it out the door, right? If you're selling one product a day, it's very easy to get that thing out the door. If you're selling 100, maybe you're still fine. If you're selling 10,000, do you need to rearrange your warehouse? Do you need to add more people? Do you need to train more people? I used to work at a place where, okay, just for background, I cannot tie a bow besides a shoelace, or every bow I tie looks like a shoelace tie, right? So when you want a bow that's tied that looks fancy, I'm not the right guy, right? So I'm on the line just like everybody else working on putting these bows together on our packages, and they boot me off because I suck at it, right? And so they had to hire people to train to make very nice bows because it was one of the things that made this product unique, right? And so what if you think of some scheme that makes your product unique, handling it at 100 or 1,000, whatever your normal volume is, if you're not handling it at 5 times that, can you handle it? And it's not a question of can you handle it eventually. Of course, you can handle it in a week or 2 weeks. But again, remember we're talking about Green Monday. Can you handle it by that deadline that you have to ship everything out? So if you're making sales on the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and it takes 2 weeks to process all your stuff, or worse, 3 weeks to process all your stuff, you're gonna miss Christmas for somebody. And the only thing worse than not being able to buy a product is buying the product and it not getting there on the right day, right? The 26th is way worse than just telling somebody you don't have the product. Give them their money back early, they can find it somewhere else, right? So, do you need extra people? Do you need extra money? Do you need extra space? What are the things you need to sort of be able to get a site, or not a site, to get your manufacturing process to get this stuff out the door? If you're doing drop shipping, do you need to pre-order more stuff from overseas? Because it might take a week or a month, and especially at that time of year, because everybody is ordering stuff from overseas, getting it on boats or in planes, gonna get congested, so there will be natural delays, right? So you need to think a month ahead of time to get your products in early so you can stage it. Okay. Do you have a good relationship with your UPS driver or pickup person? If the kind of stuff where normally they're picking up 10 products a day, if they now have to pick up 1,000 products in a day, they need warning that that's coming. Because your UPS driver will come pick up your 10 products, and then somebody else will have to come that night or the next day to get the rest of it. And if you miss your deadline, again, this is all about your shipping deadline. If you miss your deadline, and UPS comes the next day, you've missed your window, and that product delivers on the 26th or the 27th, you have a lot of pissed off customers. Right? So this is about juggling what you're trying to sell, how you sell it, how you box and fulfill it, and how you get out the door, right? These are all things that are, if you're doing any kind of e-com already, these are all standard questions, but the rules are different when you're talking significantly higher numbers, right? It's easy to watch one child. It's hard to watch 20, right? It's hard to watch 3, honestly, but it's really hard to watch 20, right? They're not significantly any more difficult, one child versus two children versus 3, etc. But just the scale makes it a different problem, right? You need to be more conscious about it, maybe require better training, plan out a little bit more. With one kid, you can just sort of hold them, pick them up if you need to, and walk around with them. You can't do that with the whole crew, right? So the same kind of logic works to all of the little pieces you have to have lined up for a transaction from somebody coming to your site and buying to them physically getting it, including them paying you money, right? All these things have to line up. And I forgot to talk about that. Getting paid is the most important thing that your website does, right? So when it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, don't use a random payment processor. There's a reason why the big boys are the big boys. So use Stripe, CyberSource, PayPal, those kind of players. Don't use Bob's payment processing thing because that's what you got through your bank. You want to go with the big players doing that time frame, and you want to have ample time to test it because you don't want your payment processor to go down the one day you actually have significant traffic. All right? Yes, sir?
So, I know years ago, airlines used to ship packages, and so you could, like, move crates of packages to cities and then hire expediters to move them around. Is that still an option? Or is
That is still an option, but that is expensive, right? So, I mean, if you think of the absolute cheapest way to move one product from one place to another is to be digital, right? The second is to be on a slow-moving boat that takes 3 to 6 months to get from China or wherever else here, right? The absolutely most expensive way is for somebody to make it custom for you while you're sitting there. The second is for it to get on a plane to come here, right? There's a lot more difference in transport costs between a boat and a jet, right? And so yes, you can get that done, but it matters how much money. If you have a $20 item, you can't afford to spend $18 to ship it, right? So for certain things, especially jewelry, watches, gold, okay, probably not gold. You wouldn't want to do that way. But high value items, still would go. You definitely want to ship it via plane. But you want to do an extra cycle on it. It's worth doing those things because the amount of money you're going to make or the profit you're going to make can still cover the added cost of shipping via plane, right? Now, a lot of stuff nowadays are shipped via plane, especially inside the U.S. It's more of an issue if you're getting something from outside being shipped via plane. Right? And the rules for that also, for what makes sense to ship, are no different now than they were in 1999. If it's small, light, those are the best things to ship, which is why Amazon started with books, which is why people love jewelry. Even if the jewelry is cheap, it costs almost nothing to ship versus kettlebells, right? I don't know of anybody that makes gangbuster money selling kettlebells when they're 80, well maybe not 80, 50 pounds a piece, right? And for sure nobody's shipping them via plane overseas, right, to get here. So those are some of the considerations to think about your product. If your product is unwieldy, you should be charging a premium because shipping it will require a premium. Or you do the innovation IKEA had and figure out how to pack it flat so it takes a lot less space than another product, right? If you can't get around those things, your product by its nature is going to have to be more expensive. So there needs to be something about it that is special to be worth that extra expense, right? It doesn't have to be the product itself. Again, it can be the packaging around it. It could be the marketing around it. It can be the story, right? It could be a feel-good story. It could be this is the best, highest technology, best constructed Italian craftsmanship. Whatever your story is, you're gonna need a story to separate it from everything else, right? Now, there might be 20 other people that are saying this is the best Swiss-made watch with Italian leather bands and glow-in-the-dark painted off iridium off a space satellite. I don't know. You can make those things up, and that is the best product ever, and that is why you spent $900 on this watch, right? But to convince somebody to spend that $900, they're gonna need that story. I saw a video recently. It was an ad on YouTube. For some reason, it stuck with me. This guy's talking about a Mont Blanc pen. It's a very fancy fountain pen. It's like $500 versus a Bic. What is your goal? Is your goal to write something on a piece of paper? Is your goal to look high status while doing it? I can write a note with a $1 Bic. I look like a boss when I have a Mont Blanc. That's worth the extra $499, right? To some people, not to me. But that is, again, that is the story, right? Or another one, this one I love. A garden variety Tesla can beat a Ferrari in a drag race, right? This is awesome, people love Teslas. But I guarantee you go through most of the country, people are still gonna want a Ferrari over a Tesla, right? I will still pay, maybe not me, but somebody will still pay $300,000 for a Ferrari. That's a fast car that its only goal are to be fast and loud that gets beaten by a silent, faster car, right? But you know, I would buy a Ferrari as well. I couldn't justify it to myself, but you know, maybe one day. All right, so again, this is about story. Some of the other stuff that are about story is quality, right? Is ease of use. How much of a pain in the ass it is to call that company back because they sent you a medium instead of a large, right? So some of those things are hard for a user to figure out by checking out your site or by just looking at a picture of the product. So there are things that you can do to help that. One of the terms is called social proof, right? And you've seen this everywhere. As an example is, oh, we are, you know, Sam's Plumbing is the best plumbing in Austin, Texas. I don't know if there's actually Sam's Plumbing, but we're just go with me. Which is why we have, you know, more 5-star reviews on Yelp than any other plumbing company. That's social proof. People like the thing, right? Or Sam's Plumbing has over 50,000 happy customers. We assume they're happy, right? You don't want to be the person taking a risk on your plumbing with Bob's Plumbing. Bob has no stars. Bob doesn't have 50,000 customers that you know of. All you know is that Bob is not Sam's that has all this stuff, right? And so looking at the two of them, again, all you have for indicator of value or virtue online is what your website shows. So reviews are good, testimonials are good, making sure you spend time on things like terms of service, return policies. All those things are elements to show virtue, right? If you go to a physical store and they have a doorman and they have chandeliers and they have, little floats of champagne, it doesn't matter if they're selling Chuck E. Cheese pizza, right? You already have added a halo around that company because of the presentation, not the product, right? If the product is great, that's even better, right? But there are lots of examples in this world, including operating systems, where the best product is not what wins. Often it's the best marketing or it's the best story, right? And so on your website, your design, your reviews, the number and quality of your reviews, the people that talk about you, who you compare yourself to, right? Those are all things that make a difference. If I'm selling, think of a common application. Let's say I am selling a book on how to start your own business book, right? And you can go on Amazon and find 50 how to start your own business books from people that have started their own businesses successfully. They're in their third or fourth business. And they're all going to be 25 bucks, 19 bucks, something like that. What if you now sell a hard to start your own business book for $2.99? Is there anything different about that book? Probably not, except we're not talking about, can you believe this crazy person is selling a book for $2.99, as in $299? Sorry. Now, some people, by virtue of it just being more expensive, are intrigued, and they're gonna buy it and then realize it's the same freaking book as somebody else made. There's no better advice. I just got snookered, right? In the early days of the App Store, the Apple App Store, there was a product called I'm Rich, and it cost $999. There were actually only two products that cost $999 because that was the highest price you could put on an Apple paid product at the time. One was Barbary, which is Bar, B-R-I. It's sort of like Kaplan for the law exam, and it's different on a per state basis. And the physical class costs between $3,000 and $5,000. So getting the online version for $1,000 was a steal, right? And so that is worth to the people that are buying it the $1,000. The I'm Rich app had a 3D picture of a gem that spun. That was it. And not one, but multiple people bought that app, right? They eventually had to do something because somebody's kid accidentally bought it several times, so they had to change their policy, so you had to put locks on it and stuff. But for a while, I'm not talking one person, I'm talking dozens of people spent $1,000 on an I'm Rich app, right? Sometimes you can't figure out how or why people are making the decisions that they are. You just want to facilitate the transaction through your store if they decide to do so, right? All right. So we talked about some of this elements already, but it's how do you make yourself more attractive to somebody that has never seen you before, right? So one of the things we should remember is that people don't buy from you. Most people don't come to your website and buy from you first time they ever see you. They don't know anything about you, right? I wouldn't go and hand you, you seem like a nice guy. I'm not gonna hand you $300 and expect you 3 weeks from now to ship me something in the mail. So I don't know you, right? What is it that it would take for me to have some sense that you're a legitimate company, that you're not just gonna, snatch my money, right? So there needs to be certain markers. So maybe there's something I'm looking for, samples of products. Maybe I'm looking for you having a line of 20 people before I can even talk to you that were interested in that same product, right? There are certain markers that show me, okay, this person is doing the kind of things I expect the kind of company I want to spend money with is doing, right? It's sort of circular logic, but that really is the, a lot of times you have to sort of act the part to be the part, right? So you might be a platypus, but if you quack, people will throw you bread, right? So this is the kind of situation where you need to look right. And so the stuff we're talking about before, returns policy, privacy policy, terms of service, those are all things that are important. Not that, again, it's the internet, most people don't read. They just want to see that it's there. They want to see that the first two lines are not lorem ipsum, right? It's really just to make sure that you have sort of dotted your I's, right? You don't want obvious misspellings and bad grammar, right? You want a passive, an editor. It's just basic things that for the handful of us that are grammar Nazis out there, that we know that somebody spent a little time on this site. It's another indicator of virtue. All right. This thing here about email samples is, in WooCommerce and Shopify and any of these systems, when you buy something, there'll be an email that goes out and says, thank you for purchasing from our site. Stuff like your product will be shipped, et cetera, et cetera. The default text is perfect if somebody has edited it. If you now go and start changing the text, you need to also make sure and check all your emails to make sure that the tone, the text, the spelling, the tense, all of those things make sense when you're sending it out. Does that all make sense? All right. So this is the part that I like the most. So these are sort of things to think about. We won't talk about specific plugins here, but the idea is to throw out some things, and you can Google them or you can ask them in the afterwards for specifics. So nowadays, your site needs to be responsive. It needs to. More people are now purchasing, depending on the market. More people are purchasing online in certain markets on their phones than they are on their desktop. When you think of the millennial market, especially, or the post-millennial market, some of them don't have desktops at home. They might have iPads. Everybody has a phone, and that's where they live off of. They don't have a computer like this. Oops. Sorry. Prioritize search. So again, Google has taught us how websites work, right? Amazon learned the lesson from Google. Facebook learned the lesson from Google. We should learn the lesson from Google, which is you should have a search and a decent search on your website. Everybody loves autocomplete. You don't need to do that. You just need to make sure that when somebody searches the word green, they find the green product. It really is that simple. But also, if they typed in green with an E at the end, better search systems will help you still find the green product with no E at the end. So there are services out there that'll help you with that. People that know me, my absolute favorite out there is Algolia. You can ask me about it later. All right, cache what you can. So caching is essentially making a snapshot of a page. What normally happens when somebody hits a page on a website is it's really pulling data from a whole bunch of places and then presenting them. And so what happens when you have a lot of traffic is now you're pulling all this data over and over and over, which taxes your machine. A lot of times you can pull that data one time and serve that same page to hundreds or thousands of people. And that's what caching is. And I think there are other classes on that topic, but if you're interested, you can ask me after. So the two most important are about scale. So one test for scale is you want to, if whatever your normal numbers are, let's say 100 people a day visit your site, you need to test for 200 people a day, 300 people a day, 400 people a day. Simulate those numbers and make sure your site can stand up. If you are lucky and Oprah talks about you, you need to be testing for 100,000 people a day or something like that. And so there are tools to help you do that kind of thing. Google has a tool called Page Speed, which will analyze your site and tell you if you have things that are slowing you down. Images, if you have bad code or non-optimal code, it'll give you prompts that you can pass on to the developer. As a developer, it'll give you leads to where to start optimizing. The last two are probably the best way to save your server if you're very busy. Don't require logins and don't require coupons. And the reason is this: when you log into a site, at least with WooCommerce, any of the open source systems, WooCommerce, Magento, Cart66, etc., when you log in, the act of being logged in means that all caching stops working for you, right? So the act of giving you add to cart that shows you what's in your cart, the act of being able to add something into your cart or putting a coupon to get a discount, all of those things, when you do that, those require talking to the database all the time, which increases the tax on your server or servers. So the easiest thing to do is to say, we're going to take temporary snapshots for all these pages, and the only place we really need to talk to the database, to talk to the, let's say the ledger in the back, is when somebody's actually paying you. So everything before then, it's okay if the data's a minute old, 2 minutes old, but when somebody's paying you or they're checking out, that data needs to be as fresh as possible, right? So if you have to prioritize, always prioritize checkout, because your number one goal on your website is for somebody to pay you. Yes, sir.
So I know that WordPress by default doesn't cache things once you're logged in.
Correct.
I'm just trying to figure out why you can't add that.
You can. So you pay very fancy developers to do it. Because every site, not every site, but most sites have different standards, right? So there are different things you might want to cache that I wouldn't want to cache on my website.
Well, because I mean, for the most part, whether a user is logged in or not, the only thing that's going to be different from them is going to be that logged in, they will have an order history.
So that is true
But
for
if they're-
basic sites.
Right, but if they're still looking at your category pages, your product pages, all that, there's no reason why that couldn't be cached.
Again, that is for basic sites. So there are scenarios where based on your user type, right? I might be a teacher versus a parent, and based on that, I might be seeing different mixes of products or different order of products or different prices on the same product, right?
Okay.
Now, 9 out of 10 cases, you're right. Those things are very simple. If I'm logged in or logged out, I'm seeing exactly the same thing. And as a general rule, these systems should be doing that, but they don't. And the reason they don't is because, just like me and just like what I just said, every other developer is thinking the same thing. If I generate this caching system, it'll work great, and then people will complain, you know, this piece of data is not loading when I expect it to, because their data system is slightly different than everybody else's data system. So, for example, that is one of the things that makes WP Engine, at least when they came out, very special, because they added extra things in their system so that even when you were logged in, they cached some small pieces which improve performance of your website. Hey, Sandy, would you mind getting me a diet Dr. Pepper? Not diet. I think I've talked myself out of liquid. All right. So the reason why I talked about coupons is coupons require you to log in to get credit. And so even if you think, oh, I'm not going to require my users to log in, the act of them using their coupons often requires them to log in, and you lose your speed benefits. Excuse me. All right. Almost done. So think beyond the transaction. So something I was touching on earlier. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's better. All right. So something I was touching on earlier was that most people don't come to your website and buy from it the first time. They need some indicator that you're legit. So they'll come back a 7th time, a 5th time, a 9th time. And then they might come back a week later when it's Cyber Monday to buy from you. Okay? It's part of the reason why all these other markers are important, because they're not gonna look through all those markers in one visit. It's after they've looked at it several times, oh, this person does have a terms of service. They have a little icon that has a lock on it to show me that they believe their site is secure. They have reviews. They have all these sort of virtue signaling that lets me know that this site is a legitimate site, right? So we are targeted for Black Friday, Cyber Monday to get people to buy, right? But after you buy, how about next year? How about Boxing Day, maybe? How about Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, International Administrative Assistance Day, 4th of July, right? Depending on the product you have, maybe you're not the product that they can buy only once a year. Maybe there are other times of the year they might want to buy it. Or maybe you just want to make sure they come back next year, right? Or they tell their friends about you. So the wooing does not stop when they buy something. Now you're going to lower the pressure perhaps, but the goal is after they've bought something, after they've gotten their money, goal is A, you deliver the product before Christmas. B, you make them feel special and smart from buying from you as opposed to everybody else. So that can come in many ways. A thank you email is great, depending on if you have something high margin. Maybe you do something more special. So a thank you card, handwritten or even typed up, are things that make people feel, oh, that's kind of cool, right? Those are things that separate your company from Amazon or from Bob's Bicycle Store, right? These are things that are sort of, they don't cost a lot, but a little extra goodwill goes a long way, right? I'm sure everybody here has had that coworker that you don't understand how he's still there, right? He doesn't seem to do much in the way of work, but everybody likes him. He seems kind of a screw up most of the time, but everybody likes him, and he's still there. And that's because he is somehow able to make people feel special enough that they overlook the part that he's not actually good at his job, right? So if you happen to be good at your job and you make people feel special, there's a stronger likelihood they're going to come back and buy from you again. And that's the goal. And so a lot of times, especially as a small operator, what we always say is you want to look like a big professional company. Yes. The day they bought from you, now you want to look like a smaller company, or you want to at least look like you're a human being as opposed to a nameless, faceless corporate entity. Hi, this is Steve. Thank you for buying from my bike shop instead of Bob's. Maybe you don't mention Bob's, but just thank you for buying from my bike shop. Really appreciate your business. We're going to send you an email of 3-part things on how to improve your bike pedals. Nobody's going to read it. Maybe there's one person that really wants to know that answer, right? What did you like? What did you not like about our shopping experience? Would it be okay if we chatted with you sometime in the future? If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask, right? These are things that not everybody does. You want to do it so that it's interesting and it feels like it's nice and but not spammy, right? It's a hard balance to figure that out. It's always better to say something than nothing, but it's better to say it once than to say it 10 times, okay? A couple of other things out here. It is okay to email your customer if they bought something from you that is not spam. It's okay to ask if they're interested in a phone call, especially when you're new and you're starting. Sometimes it'd be good to figure out why they came to your site, what it is that attracted them to you, right? It might not be something you even think about. It might be that, you sell canes, but in the background you have a flag and all your canes are black. So they're like, oh, I bought it because it's a tactical cane. I don't know if there's such a thing as a tactical cane, but if there is, now you're like, oh, I should start advertising tactical canes, right? You might learn something about your product you did not know, or at least how people perceive it. So that's why it's a good idea to follow up with people after sales, even though, yes, there's this big crunch for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Once that time has died down, especially once you're past Monday, that is a good time to turn around, reach back to some of these customers, just put out little feelers. While the internet says 1 in 100 might respond and 1 in 1,000 might actually give you a legitimate answer. So if you're dealing with a small number of users, you might not get that. Every once in a while you get lucky. Especially if you just sound like a normal person, people don't have a problem talking to normal people. People have problems talking to corporate entities, right? Even though corporate entities are made out of normal people, right? All right, so I'll skip to the last one. Refund aggressively, right? If somebody is in any way displeased, they get their nose out of joint, they thought it was going to be an extra small and it's just a small, and you don't have any extra smalls, it is better to make them feel good and get them the thing that they want, or give them justice as quickly as possible, right? I have 2 stories. There's a legend. I used to sell these things called Cutco. They're knives, sort of like a multi-level marketing scheme in college. There's this legend of a guy. I don't know if it's a real story or not, but I've heard it enough times. I think maybe it might have been true. A guy was at some rancher's place trying to sell the guy this knives. He was nervous, didn't know what he was doing. He fumbled the knife, dropped it on his foot, cut clean through a toe, right? He had been trying to talk the guy about how sharp these knives were, how well they cut and stuff, how they'll be great for Thanksgiving. But the thing that sold the rancher was not any of his tell, it was the show when he took off his toe, right? And that guy, the legend goes, the rancher felt so bad for him, he bought one of everything, right? Another story.
10 customers later.
Huh?
10 customers
Test,
later.
yeah, exactly. Another story, and this one actually, this is my own story. I overheard what had to be one of the worst customer service calls a human can get. This lady was yelling on the phone, like you could hear it cubicles away, right? Through the headset. She was yelling on the phone. She was so angry that she wanted this stone in navy, and it came in sky blue, and this was for her daughter's something or other, and they've ruined everything. And this lady, if she had physically been there, she would have been throwing elbows, something, right? And the customer support lady did not lose her cool. She stayed with it. She made that woman go from feeling angry to feeling ridiculous, to feeling calm, to feeling listened to being one of the best customers that company's ever had. It was a 20-minute call. 10 minutes was yelling and screaming. By the end of the call, they're best friends. Now, this is a rare sort of alignment of planets for this kind of scenario to happen, but it does happen, right? You can take someone that's a bad customer and make them a good customer. Sometimes the reason why they are a bad customer is they've never felt listened to, they've never felt cared about, they've never felt they never felt that you've processed what they're saying. You feel that you're only trying to sell to them, right? Some of the sleaziest people you've ever met are people you feel are trying to sell you at all times, right? There's a difference between the car salesman that tells you, hey, this is a great blah, 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 you should consider buying it, and your friend that just happens to have that car, and they talk about 30 minutes about how much they love their freaking car, right? They don't even have to be your friend. They could just be a random stranger talking about how much they love their car. They're not trying to sell you on the car, right? But their enthusiasm for the product is so high, you are much more likely to make a purchase or at least consider that car than the guy that's disingenuously trying to pitch you. Same phrases, same words, everything, presentation matters, right? So the goal here is for, even after they've bought from you, especially after they've bought from you, you want to make them feel smart, elegant, whatever the 2 or 3 words you want to assign to your product, you want your customers to feel that, appreciate it, because that increases the chance that you'll come back, right? If you go to McDonald's, every time you go there, they give you a smile. At least they try and give you a smile, and they say, thank you for coming to McDonald's. It's a script, but even though it is a script, you sort of expect that thing. I can go to McDonald's here in Austin. I can go to a McDonald's in Budapest. I will get the same, given cultural variations, I'm gonna get the same spiel. That is why I go to McDonald's, right? There's some feeling there that I get, hopefully net positive. And similarly, when they come to your site, there should be some feeling that they get. Your goal is to make it net positive, okay? All right. Retargeting is a little more advanced, so I won't cover it much today, but it's basically a way to, when somebody visits your site, to show them the product that they've seen over and over and over. So you've been in a case where you've looked at, let's say, a mattress website, and for the next 30 days, you see an ad for Nest, or not Nest, Purple or Tufted Needle or
Casper.
whatever, right? Or you're looking at a fancy watch site and that thing follows you around. Or you're looking at some expensive heels and the ads follow you around, right? The act of them following you around is because when you visited, they tracked your server ID or your computer ID through Google or AdRoll or somebody else. And every time you're on a page, that new publisher is saying, hey, we need to show them an ad. Well, the number one indicator that you're gonna buy a pair of fancy shoes is if you visited a site selling those fancy shoes, right? So you looked at it, they're trying to entice you to come back because, again, most people don't buy them the first time. It's the third time, it's the 8th time, it's the 15th time. So the reason you see these ads over and over is to get you to come back. And so as a retailer, there's a sort of a more advanced move you can do in the future, especially for next year or for next holiday, is to retarget your customers. So after they bought from you, you know a bit about them at this point, that you can follow them so that 30 days from now, they start seeing ads from you, or a sale, or a special. You have their email at this point, so you can send them a hello once a month maybe, until if they opt out, right? Those are things you can do to keep that sort of dialogue, hopefully dialogue as opposed to monologue, going with your customers. All right. You know more about your product, hopefully, than they do. And so you can make suggestions to make their products better. So I go in to buy a fancy camera. Maybe you suggest to me the kind of camera lens that goes with it. Maybe you suggest to me which of the attachments for microphones makes sense for this camera, as opposed to the other 15 attachments, so I don't mistakenly buy the wrong one. Maybe you suggest to me a book on Amazon for how to use cameras in general, or how to use this here specific camera. Those are things that, because you are in that milieu all the time, you have more expertise than your customer, and so you can lend them your expertise and make their experience better with that camera. If they buy the camera they want and they buy the wrong lens, it's a bad deal for them. It's better for you for them to buy the right lens, so give them the advice when you can. All right. I think I'll skip the rest of that. All right. If you happen to be a developer, or if you have a developer working on stuff on your site before the holidays, nothing new should be going on 2 weeks out. People are human, and humans make mistakes. The closer you get to your cutoff date, the more likely somebody is going to do something fast, which ends up being dirty, right? So they'll break something. So you want to give yourself time to check everything if you can, and stick with the plan. Don't change something in the last minute. 99 out of 100 times it will burn you, right? So no code 2 weeks out, no new pages a week out. You can of course do something the day of, the day before, hey, sale tomorrow, sale starts now, that kind of thing, but not start creating a whole new sort of set of pages, a whole new flow of stuff. It's much better to create that and not make it public or published, and then turn it on after you've tested it. But don't be like, oh, it's the day of, let me rustle together a couple more pages and put it out there. In best case, you put up a couple more pages and everything looks perfect. Less best case, you have misspellings, nobody edited it properly. Worst case, you pasted stuff in from a different page that shouldn't have gone there, right? And it changes that that halo, that persona you're trying to create for your site. So you want to be careful about that. All right, final checks. Always check the night before you go live, or better yet, 2 nights before you go live, so you have a day to fix it. So as a general rule, if your sale starts on Friday, you check Wednesday. If your sale starts on Wednesday, final checks are Monday. Nobody touches anything. The only time you touch something is when you start the sale and somebody actually hits a button. Most of the time, you can just leave it like that because people aren't going to hit your site until they're starting to think Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Okay? All right. I have a talk. I think he's also giving a talk about not being stupid. The number 1 rule for a website is don't be obviously stupid. You do the basics. You make sure your patches are up to date. You keep your site doing auto updates. If you're using WP Engine, PageLeak, Insta, all the managed hosting companies, they do that stuff for you. If you're not, there are simple systems out there that are free or near free that will help you with that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you, just like on a Windows machine, you do the security patches. Just like on your phone, it tells you every once in a while to restart, to update. You need to do the same thing with your WordPress site or Magento site or whatever else you're doing. In addition to those things, you can add some extra stuff to be a little bit more proactive in security. So WordFence is one, Sakuri is another. Sakuri scans your site every day, once a day. But again, if you're using a specialist web host that specializes in WooCommerce and specializes in managed WordPress in general, they're probably going to be doing all those things for you. It's always good to check. And so if you're just like a shared hosting on like super basic GoDaddy or something or Bluehost, then that's where you need to do it yourself. Yes, sir.
Sorry if I missed y'all talking about this, but I noticed a lot of the hosting companies are really talking about, everybody's got a WooCommerce specialization now, special offering for WooCommerce. Have you checked out some of the different ones?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on if there's really, if one's really better
Yes.
than the others?
Don't believe them, as a general rule.
Yeah.
There are about 3 I would believe. I'm biased, so I'll give you that as a caveat.
Okay.
I know WP Engine has one because I worked on it,
Yeah.
and other very smart people worked on it.
Okay.
Liquid Web has one.
Yeah.
I know that because some of the other people that left after I did went there from WP Engine
Oh, were you WP Engine?
a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Pantheon, so also has a system that's pretty good. So shorthand is if it's a managed host, there's a good chance they have a good WooCommerce system at this point, because WooCommerce is, there are only like 3 places where money is in WordPress. There's ecom, membership, I don't remember the third one. Ecom, membership, yes, membership subscriptions. Oh, and
Any plugins?
no, I mean as a host.
Oh.
And things like BuddyPress, BBPress forums, that kind of thing. Outside of those areas, most people are just doing blogs. There's not really much money in that,
Yeah.
right?
And one thing too, because we get people at the beginners classes saying, oh, I want to stay on a shared host, but I'm going to do e-commerce. And I look at them and say, that is the worst money decision you're going to make. If you are going to make money with your site, invest in the good server, because your server is going to be the difference between you being able to scale and you being able to do good business.
Right, so if you're selling, again, if you're selling 1 thing a month, it doesn't matter who you're hosted on. If you're selling 10 things a month, it doesn't matter,
Right.
right? If you're selling 100 or 1,000, then it starts to matter. Even at 100 though, it starts to matter depending on who your host is. Because if those 100 are on the same day because it's Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and your system can't take it, you just lost a bunch. You didn't lose money, you just didn't make money, right? So there's a lot of things that keep people from buying from you, even after they've come to your site. Your site could be slow, you could have obvious errors, missing images, bad text, all these markers that show that maybe you're not taking your ecom game seriously, right? But if you're talking about hosts, the hosts I would recommend would be Liquid Web, WP Engine. Kinsta's pretty good. I know the guys at Pantheon, those guys are fairly sharp. All of those that do manage WordPress do a good job. Another company I'm biased towards is A2 Hosting. I know some of the guys back there, and I know what their tech stack is. I've used it before. And so that's another one that does pretty decent WooCommerce stuff, but they're not a managed host. They don't do all this, the sort of the breadth of stuff that some of the other hosts would do. Trying to think who else. At least, so that's if you're dealing in WooCommerce, right? If you're in other areas, it might be different. So if you're using, BigCommerce or Shopify, you're trading security for freedom, if you will. Actually, you are trading security for freedom. Yeah. But yeah, so as a general policy, those are the guys I would stick with. It costs more, but I used to, I've been a developer for a long time, I did systems for a long time, and I used to poo-poo, why would I spend that extra money? And my friend was like, you're thinking about it wrong. You're thinking of paying somebody to support you. I'm like, no. You're paying somebody so that you don't have to get up in the middle of the night, right? So that's what sold me on using those kind of services now. It's much cheaper to spend an extra $100 a year, $120 a year, spend an extra $10 a month for better security than to be hacked or to be slow and pay multipliers of that to fix it in arrears.
But like with, if I'm taking up too much time.
No, go ahead, we're done.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. But like, let's take Liquid Web and WP Engine.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, they're offering that's centered around e-commerce. Is it anything other than just security and efficiency and scale? Is there anything that it comes with to create a different buying experience or, better recommendations? Recommendation engines are our thing, as you may know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I'm going at with all this.
Got it. So, no. 9 times out of 10, it's security, efficiency, and scale.
Okay.
Right? Sufficiency, but those things are important,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And so none of them, to my knowledge yet, have started adding tech-like recommendation engines. They're just getting to search, right? So if you think Elastic, just basic Elasticsearch, stuff like that. However, I do think they're gonna go there. It's probably a year out. And it's probably not gonna be them. It will be somebody else first that forces them into that market.
Hopefully they buy it.
Oh, I hope so, because then I will write it, right? But yeah, so it will be somebody else that forces them into that market. But for the same reason, they didn't care about WooCommerce for years, right? The only reason they care about WooCommerce now is because the market has grown on its own. It's not that WP Engine or Kinsta or any of these guys said, today we will start supporting Woo and we will put all of our might towards it.
Right.
Is that they're not stupid and they see the percentage of their customers asking about certain features, right, increase. And when you lose so much money to people saying, I will have my WordPress site, but I'm now going to set up my e-com site with Shopify or something, and they're like, why are we losing that money on the table? We can do 95% of the stuff Shopify does, and we can do stuff Shopify can't. Why don't we upsell that?
Okay.
But yeah, so those are the kind of reasons why you choose one host over another.
Okay.
But if you have a few minutes afterwards, I have a couple questions for you,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
And I think too, is like, if you're a small business, you wanna know that there's a team of very smart people who are thinking about how to make your site really, really good. So to me, that extra $20 a month or whatever, to know that I've got really smart people, 7/24, worried about my site, is a lot better than me being on a shared server and praying that nothing goes wrong.
So now, that's all well and good to say when you're making money. When you're not making money, mileage may vary, right? So what you want to do is you do what you have to do, but the instant you have the ability to buy yourself a little bit more peace of mind, do so, right? Being slow or hacked or whatever when you have 0 customers sucks, but it's nothing compared to if you have 1,000 customers and you get hacked. Then you got real problems, right? So you do what you can as budget, time, inclination allows, so that you can get to a certain number of sales or to some pattern that's repeatable. And once you get there, then maybe it's then worth investing a little bit in the better systems. All right, that's it. I'm
Thank you
cuffed
very
up.
much.
So, are there questions? Are there? Oh, I didn't get names before you take off. What's your name?
Jace,
Jace. That's right.
Frey.
I'm sorry.
Frey.
Frey.
I'm Tom.
Tom. You guys are here normally. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Nick.
You don't care. So, do you guys have any questions?
Well, I'm in the process of learning WooCommerce and actually more into the front end development.
Mhm.
Been taking the storefront and taking it apart,